Donald Trump signs an executive order temporarily restricting U.S. entry for travelers from 7 Muslim countries. Protests erupt at airports across the U.S., including in San Diego. Refugees, academics, and high-tech professionals fear the ban will cause long-term damage. And it turns out that Veterans' Choice, a law passed to shorten wait times for health care, hasn't done that well in San Diego and elsewhere. I'm Mark Sauer. The KPBS Roundtable starts now. Welcome to our discussion of the week's top stories. I'm Mark Sauer, and joining me at the KPBS Roundtable today are freelance journalist Tony Perry. Hi, Tony.
Hello. Good
to have you back. KPBS Speaks reporter Taryn Mento. Hi, Taryn.
Hi, Mark. Speak City Heights, Mark.
Speak City Heights. I'll get that correct yet. David Wagner, science and technology reporter for KPBS. Hi, David.
Hi, Mark.
And reporter Steve Walsh, also of KPBS News. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Mark.
Glad to have you back today. Well, it hit like a late Friday afternoon thunderbolt. President Donald Trump signed an executive order banning entry of all refugees to the United States for 120 days.
We all know what that means. Protection of the nation from foreign terrorist entry into the United States. That's big stuff.
The order also blocks citizens from 7 predominantly Muslim countries from entering for 90 days. Not surprisingly, mass confusion, anger, and widespread protests at airports across the country ensued. Here's a line from the executive order itself explaining the reason behind it. The United States cannot and should not admit those who do not support the Constitution or those who would place violent ideologies over American law. Well, Tony, a lot to digest. It's a week out and still a lot of confusion here. Tell us about this order, very broad.
Well, we shouldn't have been surprised. He did talk about a total and complete shutdown of immigration from Muslim countries during the campaign. However, this, as you say, hit like a thunderstorm. Wasn't vetted very well by his own people, by the Department of Homeland Security, by Border Patrol. And so the people who know about these things say this rollout was about as bad as it gets. And it's huge. I mean, 7 countries, 90 days, while they develop a new vetting policy. The refugees from Syria, of which there are a bunch flooding into Europe, elsewhere. A open-ended ban, we don't know. And then, of course, the Syrian situation, and also all refugees for a period of time, Syrian refugees indefinitely, while they look at how are we going to screen these people. Now, the problem, of course, is that of these 7 countries that were named, we can't find a single immigrant from those countries who indeed has caused problems in this country. We've had problems, we've had violence by self-radicalized folks who came here and got radicalized and then
or were here, born here.
We're here. We're a week into it now. As you say, the lawsuits are flying. The ACLU is heavily involved. Friday morning, 7 days out, the Justice Department in a court hearing in Virginia said that about 100,000 visas were revoked. That leaves people who had visas, now they can't come here. It's unclear how about people who were here. The judges have pretty much, let's put a temporary restraining order on this so the people aren't victimized until we know about the legality. ACLU says it's illegal. It targets people because of their religion. No, says the administration. We are targeting people from certain countries that were on a list to begin with, and we're going to look at that.
Let's talk about that. Now, you mentioned that the countries you noted that were on that list there, but there's some notable ones where terrorists have actually come from, including the 9/11 terrorists, like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Lebanon, UAE, Pakistan, Russia. Why aren't they on this list?
Good question. Now, that list, we are told, of the 7 were on a list developed not by the Trumpites, but by the Obamaites. We haven't really seen the proof of that. But indeed, where is Saudi Arabia? Well, we have, as you know, a very, very complex relationship with Saudi Arabia on all sorts of levels, and they're not on the list. And I think that will be one of the things that will be litigated once the ACLU's lawsuit and some other lawsuits, Northern California. And you're right, this seems to strand all sorts of people who have lived here, who have green cards, who are permanent resident holders. They're stranded. They can't get here. And among these folks, and some is pretty compelling stuff, old people hoping to to finally reunite with their families, children needing medical care, one of the most egregious, people who've risked their lives to be interpreters for the U.S. military. They were at first frozen out. That seems to have been lifted. This thing is just a many-headed hydra. They drug John Kelly, the retired Marine general, now the head of Homeland Security, drug him out to a congressional hearing this week, and he was at some pains to say, well, we knew something was going on, but he wouldn't quite be nailed down. Well, when did you know? Was this invoked while you were on an airplane and incommunicado? He kind of dodged that. He kept saying this is not a ban, this is a pause, this doesn't have to do with religion. We'll see how the judges
and then
feel about that.
The president itself said not a ban. Well, call it a ban. Call it whatever you want. Well, that's to the confusion.
They're calling it a travel restriction. I don't know that people fleeing the violence of Syria are on a travel holiday. They're fleeing.
Yes.
And, of course, there's a tremendous problem in Europe because of that.
Well, I wanted to cite one woman the Union Tribune reported on, Saria Johnny. She's here on a legal student visa. She was on her way back from Oslo over the weekend. And one of these many people who got caught up. She was a native of Iran, hadn't lived there in 20 years. Doesn't know if she'll get back to her studies here. They sent her back to Vienna.
Any number of graduate students here and there, and high-tech workers in Silicon Valley, you name it. There's something like 10,000 practicing doctors, physicians in this country that have permanent resident status. Are they now not allowed to go back to, you name it, and see their family and then come back and practice doctor? This is very, very difficult stuff. And General Kelly has his plate full on how to make this thing work. And the question is this just a one-off, a really badly rolled out policy? Or is this symptomatic of what we have now?
They're going to shoot first and figure it all out later.
That we're going to have these policies that seem almost amateurish, according to the folks that watch this.
David, I wanted to turn to you. Tony was mentioning some of the doctors and high-tech folks we've seen the headlines this week. It could really affect medical care here because so many doctors and medical personnel do come from overseas. And you've interviewed and done some stories here in our academic community. Tell us about overall what's reaction there.
Right. So I'll start off by talking about a story we did on a UCSD global health professor. He has a green card. He's actually a New Zealand citizen based on his time studying there, but he's originally from Iraq. And, right there in his title, global health professor, travel is a big part of his work. He goes to countries around the world to work on issues like tobacco control, indoor pollution. He had a trip coming up to Ecuador to pursue one of these kinds of projects, but he's canceling those plans now because he is from Iraq. He's concerned about whether or not he would be able to get back inside the country. There's conflicting, reports about people with green cards being detained, not being detained, conflicting messages from the administration on this. So he's canceling all travel plans for the moment, and that's exactly what UCSD is advising people like him to do.
We do have a bite from him. I want to play that here about how this is affecting his travel for his work.
I'm not going to take, these chances if people just are using my country of origin or birth as a criteria, which is absolutely unacceptable. And, I don't see any merit for it. I don't think it really protects the United States.
And of course, this was the fellow you just mentioned, who's the global health professor.
Yeah, he's not the only professor I've heard from. Right. I've heard from a number of other people from Iran at UCSD, be they faculty, grad students.
Well, what does the university say? They say just don't go anywhere. We don't know if you'll ever get back. Or?
That's the message for right now. And a statement that was put out by the UC president and chancellors of the various campuses say, they're very concerned about this. This kind of goes against the values of the University of California. And I think one administrator said that just at UC San Diego, this could potentially affect hundreds of people, be they students, faculty.
We should note, though, that other presidents have done this, that it is in the law that you can ban individuals or groups from certain countries if you think they are a threat. And you name the president, Obama did it some 19 times. Now this, what Trump has done in the sort of ham-fisted way it is rolled out, is many times larger inclusive.
Well, and you'd think you would have a Secretary of State in place or ask him about that, a Homeland Security chief.
Department of Defense.
Inform the media of what
So it has been done before. Executive orders have been done before. The Emancipation Proclamation was an executive order, and so
that's going back a bit. So I think nothing quite so broad.
So was the internment of the Japanese was an executive order. So, so this sort of use of the executive power in a sweeping way has been done, and it is in law. Now, how does it play? Does it just help the recruiters for ISIS? Hey, come on. America really is against us.
Real impact. I was up at UCSD the same day you were, and there was a very large rally there, 400 to 600 students, a campus that they tell me they're not particularly known for their activism up there, but this got people going, got people marching through campus. And yeah, there are a lot of students from these impacted countries. These are American students. I talked to one who, she's, got the Southern California accent and everything, and she talks about, I'm going to stay, there you go, that she's going to, stay home. She's not going to visit family overseas. And right now she's like, I'll stay home and I'll protest. And, again, about as American as you can get, but you wonder over time if the message keeps coming out, you're not welcome, your family's not welcome here, will there be an overall corrosive effect?
Well, Steve, it'll be interesting to see what the new vetting procedures are.
What additional measures
supposedly this is a temporary restriction, according to General Kelly. Okay, let's see it in 60, 90, 120 days, and then let's also see what you've got in mind for the Syrians, if anything. How many times are they going to ask people, are you a terrorist? Are they going to look at their social media? And how many people are they going to have to hire to do this? This is only the beginning of this very difficult
How do you really
situation.
vet the most serious cases?
Exactly.
You've got everybody.
And we've had cases where people are on somebody's watch list, the FBI, and still Florida,
no-fly list.
San Bernardino, it happens.
And Taryn, you've talked to some refugees and looked at the impact there, and especially in the area of town that you cover. What are you learning from those folks?
Well, I mean, I spoke to a lot of Syrian refugees. First of all, Syrian refugees, I think San Diego was one of the cities that had the most Syrian refugees resettled in California, and definitely the largest, one of the largest amounts across the country. So we have seen a lot of Syrian refugees coming here. And, they're obviously very concerned, very worried, very hurt. They thought they were coming to this country with open arms. They're finally accepted to the U.S., and then they find out that maybe, it's not as welcoming as they thought. They're also really concerned about family back home. Some have family that are in Syria. Some have family that are able to get to a different country, safety, and actually be registered as a refugee. And they could possibly petition to allow that family member to come and settle with them in San Diego. But now that's not going to be able to happen with this indefinite ban of Syrian refugees.
We do have another bite here from David Murphy, an interview we had. Give us a background on that.
David Murphy is the executive director of the International Rescue Committee here in San Diego. Now, that's one of 4 resettlement agencies that are here. And I think he was speaking a little bit about some common misconceptions about refugees.
All right, let's hear that.
And yet, refugees are being singled out as terrorists and potential terrorists, where this is a total miscommunication and misperception of who refugees are. Refugees are people just like you and me that want a better life for their family. Nobody wants to be a refugee. You are forced to be a refugee. You had to flee your home because of violence. You feared for your life.
And that's pretty dramatic about the distinction there. I wonder if the general American public gets the distinction between wartime refugees and people who simply reside in these banned countries.
I doubt it. You talk about the American public. It's interesting. There's been some polling out that seems to show a shift. Early part of the week, Reuters had a poll that said 48% of Americans favor the ban, restriction, whatever you want to call it. 41% do not. CBS has a poll out Friday. It seems to have flipped around. Now, different polls, okay. But now it seems to be that people are saying, no, I don't think so. Let's think of this. Now, the interesting thing is the split between Republicans and Democrats. Again, the CBS poll, 85% of Republicans like the ban, the restriction, whatever. 85% of Democrats do not. So here we go. Divided America once again. And we're right here on the border. We're on the front lines of it in many ways.
Well, and we learned over the election a little bit that maybe polling isn't going to be the best way to take the temperature of the United States.
Depends on how they ask the questions, and you got to look at those carefully. Did want to shift. One person whose job was actually lost over all this and won't be coming back to that job was the acting attorney general, who was immediately thrust into the position of having to defend the government's position, the Trump administration's position in court, as these lawsuits started mushrooming, as you noted. supported, and of course, Sally Yates, she said...
With no attorney general, she was the highest person who'd been vetted by the United States Senate, and so it was her job to either defend or not, and she refused and got fired. Now, even Alan Dershowitz, a liberal attorney, scholar from Harvard, said that that was a bit of holdover heroics. Her job was going to be gone anyway. But he said that, in his view, of this sweeping order, parts of it may be constitutional, parts not, and that he says she should have done what I think they're going to do now, is go back and say some of this stuff is legal, some of it is not. Let's fine-tune this rather ham-fisted rollout. For example, they're going to let the interpreters and their families, I think there's a moral obligation, they're going to let them in with some vetting, but they're going to let them in, and some of the green card also. So they're beginning to get the message, but while they're getting this message, the lawsuits are piling up. The ACLU has also filed an enormous Freedom of Information Act so we can get some numbers on this thing.
Right.
How many people are we talking about? How have you treated them? And what's the future? One of the things about this that was so astounding is it was as if the government rolled out a policy that disrupted a lot of people's lives, but we really didn't know how many people. We really still don't know how it's being interpreted at JFK and LAX and Lindbergh and all these various
and thought through. And I want to come back to David on the high-tech companies. There's so many here, global reach, lots of travel. What are they saying? I mean, this is affecting their business and jobs.
Right. I think broadly we've seen tech companies really speak out against this, express concern. I'm thinking of mostly Silicon Valley tech companies here. We even saw the CEO of Uber step away from an advisory position in the Trump administration over the real outrage that this has caused in the tech community. I did some reporting locally, though, and interestingly, the tech giant here in town, Qualcomm, has not weighed in on this. I think that's interesting because according to one professor's analysis, one person I talked to who looks into H-1B visas a lot, Qualcomm is actually one of the top tech employers of people from the 7 countries listed in this travel ban. Only Microsoft received more H-1B visa approvals for people from these countries.
But nothing from Qualcomm yet.
Qualcomm has not weighed in on this.
Well, isn't that basically the San Diego way? I mean, look at the very mild statement by Kevin Faulkner. That's we're San Diego, let's hunker down and hope it goes away.
Maybe, but maybe not. I think I also reached out to Illumina, a huge biotech company in town, and their statement, wasn't strong, I would say, but they were expressing concern and saying that they would reach out to Congress.
I mean, the mayor of Los Angeles, not known as a To the Ramparts activist, he went to the airport on the first day.
Yeah,
and
a lot of congressmen did too.
A couple of days ago, when the first fellow who had been sent back got to return because of court action, there was the mayor. Los Angeles, and he's not known as a firebrand, but again, San Diego.
And I think that's because their constituents are really driving that. I think that's what. Remember, like only a few weeks ago, we saw Bernie Sanders say, "Well, if Trump is going to change NAFTA, we'll work with him maybe on infrastructure." I think all of that is out the window at this point because their constituents are saying, "No, you need to take a sharp line." And that's going to be very tough for the president coming down the line because, remember, he's a Republican. He's got majorities in both houses, but he's not a traditional Republican. Many of his own party don't like a lot of the ideas that he is espousing. And he's going to need some Democratic help down the line.
Well, I'm going to leave you the last word on that one, and we're going to come to you in a second here because we're going to move into our next segment. With our large population of post-9/11 veterans, San Diego has, not surprisingly, it's among the longest wait times for health care at VA facilities. Congress tried to address the scandal of long waits at VA hospitals and clinics with the Veterans Choice Act. Steve, start there. What's in that act and what was it supposed to do?
All right, remember what was going on 2 years ago. There were a lot of publicity. The Phoenix VA, people talking about long wait times, people dying on wait times. This is a national scandal. Within a matter of months, Congress went through and they passed what was known as the Veterans Choice Act in 2014. It did three basic things, but we're going to talk about 2 of them. One of them is it provided about $10 billion so you could go to see an outside. If you had a long wait time, more than 30 days, you lived more than 45 miles away from a VA, you could go to an outside doctor. There was another part of this law, we covered that back in May. There's another part of this law where The VA was also given a couple of $1 billion, Bernie Sanders was actually involved with that, to allow the VA to staff up, hire doctors, nurses, and other professionals to try to bring down those wait times.
Need more personnel. Yeah.
Exactly. Bring more people to bear.
Okay, and how's it worked out here with that money coming in?
Well, we found it was a bit of a mixed bag. So, yeah, when I say we, KPBS, NPR, and a couple other member stations around the country have been looking at this law for the past several months. And what we found is this money went a whole bunch of different places. I mean, you look at San Diego. Back in 2014, they had one of the longest wait times in the country to see a mental health provider. They asked for 40 people. They got about half of them. They got about 24 of those people. Los Angeles, it had one of the longest wait times in the country. They received even fewer people than San Diego did overall. They only received about a little over 100, just for everything. So there didn't seem to be any real rhyme or reason as to where the money was placed.
Yeah, some of the places that weren't at the top of that list who had the long wait lines tended to get resources anyway, right?
Exactly. Places like Dallas, where they did not have particular issues with wait times. They got 3 times more staff than Los Angeles did.
And Loma Linda up here nearby here.
And Loma Linda got more than Los Angeles as well, and more than San Diego did. In fact, the VA prioritized 33 VAs around the country. This is what they told us. And every VA in Southern California, except for some reason San Diego, was a priority, but that didn't seem to bear any relationship to how many people they got.
Well, what do you say when you ask that basic question? Hey, what happened to your list? What happened to the need?
Yeah, what happened to the need? Well, and this is the problem overall with reforming the VA. This is a very large, complex, cumbersome system. And what David Shokin, who was running the VA's health side, told us is that they let every VA kind of set their own priorities. What do you guys need? What do you guys need? And they went off of that list. So they held some money back, but overall, we found like nearly every VA, as we dug into it, nearly every VA in the country got some of this money, even if they didn't have long wait times at all. And the VAs that had the worst wait time didn't necessarily get the most people.
What I found interesting out of your reporting was that the allowing the veterans to go to the private sector when they have a long wait hasn't seemed to catch on. Why is that? I know some of the veterans groups don't like the idea of sending people outside. They like that VA system and they want to keep it all inside. What's your take? Why hasn't that worked? That was going to be a great safety valve. If you can't get your appointment quickly, go down the street to a private vendor. What's wrong?
Well, there are a lot of reasons why. Some of it is that people simply like VA care. Some of it is the private sector isn't necessarily some sort of panacea. If you don't have a lot of psychiatrists available at the VA, it doesn't necessarily mean there's a whole bunch of psychiatrists waiting out there in your community ready and able to see patients. So it's not necessarily the safety valve that people imagine it might be. That looks like that is going to be the real question here going forward. Because David Shokin, the person who is right now running the health side of the VA, is Trump's pick to become head of the VA. During the campaign, one of Trump's things was he said that every vet should have access to a private doctor.
But we're San Diego. You can't go to La Jolla or Terra Santa and shake a tree and not have 3 psychiatrists fall out of it. I mean,
I would dispute that. I would dispute that. There is a shortage of psychiatrists throughout the system, and there are particular problems with the VA. There's a very long onboard. It takes you a very long time once you get that job at the VA to actually get in there and start seeing patients.
Yeah, hiring's a big problem with this.
All healthcare has this problem to some degree. I mean, you have to be certified in California, all that good stuff, but then you also have to go through all these background checks like that. And one of the issues seems to be that the VA system tends to operate as 186 medical centers, not as a giant nationwide system. One of the things we found during our reporting is that they didn't have any real sound personnel system to be able to track openings throughout the system prior to 2016. So it's very hard to make sort of system-wide decisions when you don't have good data.
Mm-hmm. And any hope going forward here? We got about a minute left.
Plenty of hope. So you have to think of Veterans' Choice as, well, the other big public policy debate, the Affordable Care Act. Is this something that you want to reform, or is this something you want to replace? And so the question is, now this act is up. It's going to be up in August, and within a few weeks.
The Veterans' Choice Act.
Veterans' Choice Act. Congress is going to have to start looking at whether or not how they want to reform this. David Shulkin has said that he wants to make changes in this, but keep going. Obviously, the president at some point has said he wants everybody to be able to go out to see a private doctor, and there, which of course there could be a lot of problems associated with that.
And meanwhile, we still have this huge surge in veterans, and we're in our foreign wars and having engagements around the world.
There's a surge of veterans, and imagine if the Affordable Care goes away and there's nothing to replace it. How many more vets would be surging into VA health care? That's something nobody's really been talking about.
Right, lots of problems. Well, we hope it's not as chaotic going forward as we saw with our first topic here on this ban. And the ACA, that's going to be another big knot to untie, and Republicans in Congress are already grappling with it. Well, thank you very much, and thank all of you. That does wrap up another week of stories at the KPBS Roundtable. And I'd like to thank my guest, freelance journalist Tony Perry, KPBS reporter Taryn Mento, David Wagner, also of KPBS, and Steve Walsh, also a reporter with KPBS News. Heavy KPBS today, that's great. A reminder, all the stories we discussed today are available on our website, kpbs.org. I'm Mark Sauer. Thank you for joining us today on the Roundtable.